What is up, everybody? Solomon here, and welcome back to the third Solomon Moore podcast. And I should maybe say today the Solomon Moore Owl podcast, because we do have Crypto Owl on with us. And yeah, welcome Crypto Owl, and welcome Darren. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you today, Solomon?
Living the dream. Owl, how are you doing, dude?
Man, you know what? I'm living the dream as well, guys. I'm so glad to make it on the show and get away from the everyday life on Twitter Spaces and come to you guys and actually do some research, man, and tell Darren he definitely looks like a Simpsons character, because I've been, every time I look at that guy on Twitter, I'm like, I love this guy. He looks just like a Simpsons character. And man, what you guys do for the community is great. So let's put the syrup on the pancake, right?
Yeah, and I guess to give everybody a heads up, let's put the syrup on the pancake. To give everybody a heads up, Darren and I have obviously started this podcast a few weeks ago. Our goal is on a weekly basis, whether that be just him and I, whether that be bringing somebody else up on. But the real thing that we want to continuously resonate in this space is that everybody can be empowered. And we love all of the innovation in this space, and we love all the content creators. And Crypto Owl, I saw probably starting like a month and a half ago, maybe even a little bit later than that, was doing continuous Twitter spaces, trying to get people up involved in the community, talking about the space, not looking at it from this like insanely serious lens, but also knowing that there's an opportunity. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, dude. And this won't be hopefully the last that certainly you're on, and we plan to bring more people up as well. Darren, I'm sure that you have similar sentiments about what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried that sometimes when we get into the deep dives that we're getting too like dry and technical. So we wanted to, change it up a little bit. We invited Crypto Owl to speak. I know he's been doing a lot of Twitter spaces. I've been joining some of them, and they're pretty interesting. It's nice to have dialogue with everyone in the community and be able to share ideas and future developments and ideas and everything.
This guy's funny as shit, though, by the way. So like, I'm super excited to have him on. So we're going to get started. So this came out, and this is from BitMEX. So obviously take it with a grain of salt. It's obvious, BitMEX has ties to a lot of organizations. So they're going to phrase whatever they discuss in a certain framework. But there were a couple of interesting ones. And this is 5 ways the world of crypto will change in 2022. The first thing that I saw really was kind of, which I've seen a lot, is that, we will be seeing more women, and we certainly will be seeing the youth like start to participate in this space. Looking at my YouTube analytics and stuff like that, I don't look at it all the time, but I do notice that like the audience that I have that are females is probably like 10-13%. And I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. It's interesting to me. And it's like, it's a natural occurrence. It's going to happen because, in the United States, a lot of women are running financial households, like for entire families, doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm sure that they'll be coming into the space. And we see, that's not to take anything away from the women that are here doing it in this space right now, that are doing it in a legit way, just like we all, some of us are trying to do it. There are a lot of women out there that are going to be participating in crypto. We can talk just off the top of my head, Crypto Eddie, Darren. I mean, I watch her stuff, and even when I have conversations with her, I normally try not to talk too much, because she does her research. She understands the space. She knows where it's going. And yeah, I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, my views are like 5% female, which I find pretty odd, because when I log on to Twitter, I notice a lot of feminine profile pictures, and I know a lot of people reach out to me, and they're female. So it's I don't know how exactly they're getting the 5% number, but it does seem off to me. I can't say that with any certainty, but I've noticed my wife, for example, has switched her avatar for Twitter because she noticed that there's a difference in the way people communicate to her and treat her. So I'm wondering if a lot of females, change that type of statistic just so they could be able to participate more, which, is pretty sad to think about when you think about that. Just to be able to participate, you have to kind of change your Twitter avatar to something masculine. So hopefully that gets better.
Yeah. Does Mrs. Owl, does she participate in Crypto Owl?
She definitely does, and it's everybody has to, these, let's just face it, guys, our wives, they put up with us. I mean, we can be raunchy at times in the real world. And when you talk about like bringing your wife into something when they're already taking care of your household, you're taking care of your kids, like you said, Solomon. I mean, dude, everything like that. It it's very interesting. So yes, Mrs. Al definitely does, but see, I have to empower her to get on these spaces, because let's just face it, on the Twitter spaces, they can get pretty rough with freedom of speech and lots of testosterone in these spaces. So it's good to set the stage so women can feel comfortable with our testosterone in these spaces and just everywhere, right? I mean, because let's face it, that obviously right now it shows. I mean, it shows, and that's odd to me too, Darren, just looking at it, that the statistics are so odd on that. I can't believe it. And I think that I've been noticing too, I have a couple, they're older couple, my dad's friends, and they got into crypto together. So they did it as a team, right? So no matter if you're male or female, as long as you can do it, being a team without, a domestic disturbance and calling the cops and, fighting over, whose account is what, then I would say
I
that
think it's a
dope.
mix too, because like I know, like when I'm in discussions and when like with talking with Crypto Eddie and even Carola, which I don't know if she minds if I say her name, but has been in my project for months. I mean, they are not worried about testosterone whatsoever, because they can hold their own amongst anybody to any extent. And it's that personability, like, and it's every individual person has the ability to do that. I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever. But it is interesting to me that we don't have as many females, in this space, supposedly by the numbers. But I see so many women out there doing fantastic things in this space. And Darren's wife, Robin, is certainly one of them. And Emily, I think about Emily on my Patreon as well. The chick learned how to read Solidity, and it caught, I shouldn't be saying this, but caught Floki like within the first day, when Floki was like under a $5 million market cap. And I know that she made money doing it. I won't say how much, but I was like, make sure you hold some. And obviously we saw Floki go to 3 billion. Long story short, I don't know if she held any, but it's all about what every individual is willing to put in, because and I don't care again about sex or any of that crap. Like, whatever you're willing to put in, you're going to get back in this space. And I think this alludes me to this a little bit here. Solana giving Ethereum a run for its money, and we can see all these layer ones, but they don't even mention like Hedera Hashgraph within this. And there's so many other protocols that are going to kind of, in my opinion, start taking away market share from Ethereum. The one interesting thing that I consistently see and wanted to ask both you guys was like, from the influencer and like the YouTube video standpoint, like I posted yesterday, where as the market starts to do things in a negative way, the hype-based content directly surrounding price action starts to ramp up. And I'm curious if you guys see similar things.
Well, I noticed that it also goes the opposite way too. When markets look a little shaky, people amp up the bearish side. So there's like this kind of exaggeration that happens with both sides, which is kind of interesting. Like if people are really, if the market's just an illustration of our emotions, right? It kind of speaks to social psychology. Everyone does the extremes in those scenarios. So
I was standing outside smoking a cig before we did this video today, and I know you guys have said I need to quit. I do need to quit, but I envisioned like a YouTube, like the actual picture for these videos, like turning into this thing where it's you and I like face to face. It's like this really epic thing going on, when really we're just bullshitting about crypto for like an hour. And that's like what the space is, though. It's like urgent. Watch this now watch this. Thankfully,
Yeah.
I'm glad BitBoy has done what he's done for the XRP communities. He's gotten us out there into certain spaces, but the way things are done is just interesting to me. And it was like, watch this video today before you sell Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's down like 30% in the past like month. It's like, dude, like, where was this video out 6 weeks ago? Like, absolutely. I needed to know this shit before the price tanked. You know what I mean? So,
Solomon, real quick, man, I have a hard time with people on the spaces when I say, look, depending on what you do, if you're a long-term holder or if you're trying to live off your crypto, there's so many variants and getting into this space where, you know, you can really make mistakes, but people have a hard time believing me when I say, hey, you could be 50% right and 50% wrong. Like if the market's going to go up or down, it's whatever. But if you're a long-term holder, it doesn't matter to you. I think people need to be telling people, hey, be sure and save some money for the next dip. You know, people don't tell people the right things. They're not truthful, you know, and I think,
well, and long-term holder is the perfect way to put it. And I'm sure Darren will agree with this, where it's like, him and I definitely believe in sustainability and the longevity of this market, but different frameworks come about at different times. We have a couple of macroeconomic posts. Darren, I'll do this one real quick, and then we have a Price Waterhouse Cooper one as well. So this came out last week from the International Monetary Fund. So this is entitled the Currency Revolution. Is this through F&D, so finance and development out of the International Monetary Fund? Essentially the lead of this division saying, you know, Bitcoin hasn't worked very well as a medium of exchange that can be used for day-to-day transactions, unstable value, time and expense of use within the network. But the real thing we need to be cognizant of within reading documents like this is that these are the largest powerhouses in the world, literally telling you the digital assets are certainly here to stay. And they do it in interesting ways, almost like trolley ways if you're paying attention. But they're consistently telling you that fiat essentially runs in parallel to an extent with crypto. And then obviously once there starts to be a bridging of that parallel ecosystem between traditional and new, and the new starts taking over and more market share. I mean, it's just it's the necessary way that things go. I mean, that system is going to go away. And I'm sure, Darren, you've seen they do almost troll us though, right? Because like the IMF will post something, and then there's like 3 other institutions that will post like the same exact thing, like within a 24 to 48 hour time span.
Yeah, just the titles and everything, and the cover art and everything. Go back to the IMF thing. And scroll down a little bit and go to the quote that talks about Bitcoin buying a cup of coffee. And I found that interesting, that it says it is likely cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin will be used to buy a cup of coffee or pay rent. It is likely, question mark. So like that's something that Garlinghouse has used. It's like, you know, during one of his speeches, he would say that during, you know, one of the conferences or anything. So I find that pretty funny too, that they're like quoting Garlinghouse.
He used the Starbucks analogy all the time. I think he used like the exact Starbucks analogy. Am I going to walk into Starbucks and pay for a cup of Starbucks with Bitcoin? No, probably not. But that's we have so much about this in this video too. Like there's a metaverse section that we're going to be touching on here, where essentially like micropayments, in my opinion, play a really big role within metaverse, and where that needs to go from like just a streamlined use case type thing where we all kind of are living in this digital environment. But it's interesting, we see rhetoric from all these institutions, and the IMF is certainly one of them. And Darren, you found this. Now this is Price Waterhouse Cooper, one of the big 4, obviously. You can certainly lead with this one.
Yeah, so PwC, if you don't know, is one of the big 4. So Deloitte, KPMG, Ernst Young, PwC. I believe there used to be the big 8, and then they went down to the big 4 after the financial crisis. In this document, it talks about European institutional investors, and it says that over 56% of European institutional investors are now dipping their toe into crypto or invested somewhere into crypto. And if you've been watching Jack McDonald's from PolySign's interview, he talks about doing a proof of concept with European institutions. Now, any of these institutions that want to get into crypto, they have to have the proper security. They have to have the proper storage for crypto assets. Now, so it's interesting to me to see this 56% jump, and then the information that was revealed by Jack McDonald. And it just shows you like where everything's headed. And we're in it before the whole 100% of institutional investors are in crypto. And I strongly believe that's going to be the case. I think, you know, that these crypto asset networks are going to pretty much absorb the old system. We're talking about the IMF paperwork, and what's happening right now is the interest rates have gone negative, and to continue that trajectory of going more and more negative, they need to make a central bank digital currency, and that allows them to go more negative. Now, if you just have like a CBDC and that's it, like none of the economic benefits really weigh out. What's needed is for these open platforms to do something innovative that is able to bring down costs, up efficiencies, and kind of just help the whole globe. So it's where I strongly believe that 56% is going to jump up to 100% at one point. This is just the EU. Imagine what happens when the whole world comes in. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I like crypto. We're in early.
Crypto out. Do you have any deep analysis based on Darren's description there about the macroeconomic issues going on with CBDCs?
To be honest with you, on this one, I'm sitting and I'm learning.
Yeah, dude.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes I listen to Darren talk and I'm just like, Jesus Christ. I'll zone out for a good minute because he knows so much about kind of like the economic aspects. And that's something that I certainly know a little bit, obviously, but I try not to delve out of like my wheelhouse. I think Darren's really, really good at kind of that stance in this space. I thought you were going to say something ridiculously funny.
Oh man.
I was like, do you have any sort of deep analysis?
Oh man, the deep analysis is that like, we're going to crypto. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to crypto, like Darren said. That's what I would tell you on that. That would be my end statement on that. It's like, dude, we're going to crypto. You're right. We are all in early. They're going to have to utilize and see which ones are better for information, like a Hedera Hashgraph type of thing, and then like in payments, like for like an XRP. So, and everybody will decide what's best. And it's kind of obvious. And we're going to get into, what the Fed had to say about it here in a couple of clips. But yeah, man, I mean, when the Fed and people start talking, it's not promising. But like, if somebody's telling you what they're considering, like DLT, it's there, dude. The bread is in, the proof is in the pudding, right? There you go.
And I think a lot of people, maybe zooming out and looking, because I know PwC here, showcases, total crypto market capitalization in trillions of dollars, not billions, but trillions of dollars, obviously. And this is just since 2017. And this is even skewed to the point because you can actually pull it up and really look at where it's at. And you can see the trend. The general trend, right, is that the market gets fucking overhyped. There's too much oversaturation that cools off. And then there's this time of just mass opportunity. And we're not talking small moves here. I mean, when an asset class moves from during a bear market, like $110 billion up to, $2.7 trillion, you're talking about like a 30x basically, right? Just in market cap alone. And if you're dealing in any sort of assets that are, and even if you're not, I mean, if you fucking get lucky and you're gambling, because a lot of people are gambling. Now, I don't recommend gambling, but if you're dealing in utility and you're looking at opportunities during, these bearish cycles within crypto, even though the long-term trajectory is certainly upwards and people have all sorts of phraseology, it's too hypey, I don't trust it, like it's not sustainable, it's volatile. Well, no shit, like it's a new asset class being developed out. But if you stay the course and you look at these opportunities that people had to buy in like 2018 December or March of 2020 and what the upside potential is, it's interesting to me to see that we're still being showed that we're going to go insanely parabolic when history has told us that we do need to clear out of that oversaturation to hit those newer highs. Now, what's interesting is like 2.7 trillion is essentially right around what we hit. And I'm not going to say this was over from the bullish standpoint yet, but I'm not going to say bearish either. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. But I truly believe that the next cycle, the next fully fleshed out cycle, and I'd be curious to hear like what your opinion is, Darren, and what yours is, Al. Like if we hit 2.6 or 2.7 trillion now, we start to see regulatory clarity. We start to see some of these initiatives based on utility coming to fruition. I really think that 6 to 8 trillion, to me, is almost a no-brainer. Not financial advice, obviously. I just think that it's this parabolic cycle after cycle growth that is really going to keep driving this space. And it's not an if, it's a when, and when is each cycle. And there's opportunities and there's times that you shouldn't play with it.
Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I'm looking at the monthly on total, and it looks like we bounced off the 21 EMA, and I'm kind of kind of happy about that. I'm still going to remain bullish until we make a newer low or we make a lower high, right? So you notice we just bounced right off of there. We're still resting on it now. I mean, it's possible that we wick below there and everything, but I agree with you, Solomon. I think there's opportunities for you to have take risk on and risk off, right? And I'm not like day trading crypto or anything right now, just because I don't really trust the markets. Although I still remain bullish in my conviction. I just think that it's not exactly over yet, and it's with the data that we have with the Fed's CPI numbers are 7.5%. Like what happens to crash Bitcoin? Like they would have to raise interest rates to something that's pretty scary, and I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that would cause too much pain in the actual economy for them to do that. So I don't necessarily see this stopping. However, I'm very cautious. What are your thoughts, Al?
I honestly think that it's been like take this for instance. I got into crypto at 2018, right, which is fairly new. I mean, you have people in these spaces that's been into crypto like what 2000, I mean even 2013, you know what I mean? And with that being said, thinking about putting myself in those guys' shoes from the early Bitcoin stages and going on to Ethereum, and when and then XRP is like number 3 on market cap, and seeing what's coming in and seeing competition with everything in blockchain, it's like where you have, I feel like I'm going to stand on the sidelines and buy each individual dip and not worry about it, and try to keep up to date with the research, man, like you guys are doing, to make sure that when you buy something with utility purposes and not hype. It's like Solomon said. I agree with you, Solomon. If you want to gamble, like, I'll just be real with you guys, man. Like, if you want to gamble, then do it, but don't do it with your bag holdings, right? That's just smart.
Yeah, and I mean, I have an interesting take on this, because there are certainly like super utility driven maximalists in this space, and Darren and I know that we probably both have an interesting take on this, because we focused so much on XRP research for so long that like there were assets that him and I both knew would do insanely well that we never acted upon, because we were so focused and zoomed in. That's not to say that I don't believe in XRP. That's just to say that I very much so believe in like the internet of value theory, where it's going to be multiple assets playing different roles based on whatever utilities that they potentially bring to the table. So, and this is like just even delving out even more. So I'm not going to dig too deep into this, because I talked about this in that video I did, but this is like literally the Federal Reserve, Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve, using distributed ledger technology for payment directories. If you don't think they're paying attention to this space and different aspects within this space, I mean, they certainly are. And this all deals in interoperability for sure, but tying in NFTs, I mean, they know across the board what's coming. Now, we all saw this, which is the Biden quote unquote crypto oversight executive order, which is supposed to come this upcoming week now, when it was supposed to come this previous week, because this news has just been an announcement of an announcement of an announcement. But this leads me into this, because I'm curious to see what you guys think, because if you read into this, it's essentially giving like a 6-month commentary period as well for like organizations potentially affected by this sweeping order. But also kind of with the Binance news. So Darren, I know you saw this and sent this to me a few days ago. Very interesting to see that, like, what's going on just across the globe.
Yeah, if you go back to the Fed part with the NFTs, it's interesting that if you look there, it says a smart contract creates an NFT with a payment alias information. So that's the digital identity. So your identity is going to be an NFT on the platform. Yep. I just noticed that's pretty interesting, right? And wow. Like where is that all going? So yeah, they're definitely very active in these spaces. I've been watching a lot of the conferences and some of the speeches that the Fed's given, and they're they're very aware of just everything that's happening. The Biden executive order, from what I've read, that it's supposed to be like Biden pushing the regulators to figure it out, right? I didn't see anything that specifically said Biden's going to write something that defines crypto or anything like that. I see that the pressure is coming from the top to figure this out in a hurry, and that's Binance and Russia, right? We're having this economic type of warfare, tech Cold War, and the rest of the world's progressing, and I think that's why it needed to come from the top, and that's beneficial for all of us as when the U.S. finally gets into the mood of competition versus taking a backseat approach with as far as regulations. U.S. companies, they're very active and everything, and it's
ridiculous. This announcement is ridiculous, by the way.
Dude,
Binance announcing its entry. Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Oh man, so many puzzle pieces. I can't, when you like make a puzzle and then like some of the pieces you misplace or you spill your damn drink on it, and yeah, screw that, man. But yeah, hey, I'll tell you right now, this is a good puzzle piece, if that makes any sense to you guys, analogy wise. Dude, this is insane. Like in the news that comes out every day, have you guys noticed this? Like if you could have put me in a time capsule 2 years ago and told me all the news like on crypto in general, and I woke up and it wasn't at 10 trillion, not financial advice, by the way.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. I would be freaking like going insane right now. Like 100%. It's moving fast. It's moving fast.
This is a ridiculous announcement. I mean, Binance literally announcing its entry into the Association of Banks of Russia. Now founded in 1990, granted, this is from Cointelegraph. Founded in 1990, the association includes over 300 banks and financial institutions in Russia, covering nearly 90% of the country's banking infrastructure. Why? Well, okay, yeah. If crypto is not going to be used, why does Binance have a seat at that table? And then we saw this as well. And I know that a lot of the sanctions that we're hearing, essentially coming from that tech framework, Darren, talking about SWIFT. But, really, we talked about this a little bit briefly before this, but proposed sanctions against Russia, Russian banks would bar them from making any transactions in US dollars, essentially freezing any dollar-denominated assets or liabilities held by the banks at home and abroad. And you had some interesting thoughts on this one as well, for sure.
So I watched the press release with the NSA leader, and as well as the Mr. Sanction is his nickname. I can't remember his full name, but he was the person that drafted these sanctions. And what he was saying is that they're going to sanction Russia, but they're not cutting them off of SWIFT, and they're not going to sanction their energy. They're specifically going to sanction technology. And that goes back to my later point about this being a tech Cold War. It's interesting to see the president's orders aligning with the movement in Russia and Binance moving in and everything like that. It's
yeah. I didn't even think about that, with the executive order plus all the tension going on right now. And yeah.
Right. Well, we need to be able to compete, right? When I watched his press release, that he was saying that, the beauty of the West is that technologies flourish because we allow, innovation to flourish. Well, everything in the East is kind of top-down approach. We allow the innovators to innovate, and we, kind of let that happen naturally. So, the tech Cold War is happening, and these are just, the movements by the chess players.
In Russia, you don't watch TV. TV watches you.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, you found this one as well, and this is Tranglo, and this deals a little bit in APAC to an extent, right? You want to touch on this one? I mean, look at all of kind of the not even incubation, but integration that we see right here within Tranglo, and you shared this with me a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so if you're not aware, Ripple bought 40% stock in Tranglo, and Tranglo has the inroads to the APAC regions, and specifically Alipay and WeChat Pay they have a partnership with. And in this article, it talks about some of the volume that was pushed through Tranglo into the China area. And let me just scroll down a little bit underneath this picture. All right, so it says when you look at the customer and growth numbers of Alipay, over 1.2 billion, and WeChat Pay over 400,000, they are the most direct route to the heartland of the Chinese payment industry. The Chinese, I don't know what that word is.
Diaspora.
Around the world. What is it?
Diaspora.
What's that mean?
I have no fucking clue. I'm just pronouncing it phonetically. Diaspora. It has to be pronounced that way. Otherwise, I give up.
Yeah, around the world is increasing too, and we see a huge potential in terms. So, right here too, bridging a gap between the old and emerging payments corridors of Asia Pacific. So we know that Ripple is very active in the APAC region. We've seen a lot of partnerships. Tranglo is an ODL partner, and they have that bridge into the Chinese economy, which the Chinese economy is massive. If you think about all the manufacturing that happens there, there needs to be a lot of money to flow into China. Now, it seems like Ripple is pushed for a remittance use case, but that's not really what XRP is. It works for remittances really well because it moves money fast and cheap. But what happens when there's enough liquidity to move large transactions, right?
Yep.
It's
almost like, isn't it interesting that we're almost seeing like trials in different corridors at this point? Because like with Tranglo, acquiring a 40% stake, and now we can even see here there was an on-demand liquidity pilot deployed in September 2021, which Tranglo is saying was a resounding success. 250,000 transactions worth $48 million processed in the first 100 days. How long was the MoneyGram utilization of XRP? Like 6 months?
I'm not sure, but what was interesting is this came right after the MoneyGram dropped Ripple.
So then they moved with Tranglo, and maybe there's different fucking corridors within that where they're trying to stress test the network potentially for like rails and stuff like that. That's just me thinking out loud. That's probably
that sounds about right though. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, that's what it's doing. Oh, dude, it's gonna just spread like a freaking wildfire. Hope it don't burn down your forest, Solomon. Jesus Christ.
You already are, man. What were your thoughts on it, Darren? Because I just thought about that now.
That gets back to the tech Cold War, right? Since this SEC came down on a U.S. company that's working in this technology, they just moved to the east now and just handed that technology over, right? So that gets back into the Cold War part of this, and maybe.
So what are the networks then? If they segment it off, and we didn't prepare any of this, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like if they segment off like BRICS, and maybe it's like a move towards segmenting off something like BRICS, which is obviously dealing with Russia, one of them. Hyperledger, I think, is deals in Russia to an extent, doesn't it? And I know that like networks like, obviously BSN within China, I'm sure that I'm pretty sure that I've seen that there's rails being built between Russia and Blockchain Service Network and all that stuff. I'm curious, like who the tech providers and what assets, I mean, would be integrated into those systems, because there would almost need to be two separate competing things that are walled off from each other. I just don't know. I don't think that that's how it ends up. I think it's all like a show for us to watch about this.
Hey, Darren, pretty much what he's trying to say is you better tell us, because we know that sir. So you better start talking.
Think about the Communist Party of China, right? Like, they're not going to just allow any tech to come into their walled garden. They're going to have a fortress walled garden. Same thing with Russia, right? So just the integrations into this is a tremendous amount of confidence in the tech if they're allowing this to interact with their software and everything. They've got to be afraid of security risks and everything into that aspect. So them giving the green light to this is big news. It's just
remember we saw Soramitsu back in 2018 with the cent, and that was like the Sora coin that you and I both never acted on. It was like 100x. And it was like Central Depository Institution of Russia tied in with like certain DLT initiatives, like Ripple was tied into there. That was through that. I think it was Sora, wasn't it? Soramitsu?
Yeah, I believe so too. And I think that was their Hyperledger, where they're integrated into Hyperledger. They had, I think,
yeah.
Rohi is Interledger enabled, so
Yep.
they adopted Interledger. So there was a lot of fun with Hyperledger Quilt, because the GitHub didn't have any activity, so people assumed that they
They did
dropped
some
it.
e-dollar stuff too, like Project Bakong, I think was in there. And I know Hyperledger was in there, but yeah, like that's crazy because we're still seeing this stuff now. And this stuff has been built out like for years. So, I mean, we've seen the integrations like being there for years. And it's like, now you're starting to see how big, what's really insinuated here. Like, I think Binance joining this group is just massive. I don't want to stay on it way too long because I know that we all will we'll all keep talking about it. But in case nobody knows, APAC, Western Pacific Ocean, varies in area, obviously, but East Asia, Oceania, and Russian Far East, Southeast Asia, and Southeast Asia, or South Asia and Southeast Asia. And this was interesting to me too, guys. So like, this is coming out of Verizon, obviously, like a few days ago, saying the metaverse is here. Now, shout out to Hedera Hashgraph and Metaverse. I think they're mentioned in here. But the rhetoric to me of saying the metaverse is here is completely nonsensical. Like, we're just seeing like the very, very bare bones of how something like that would work. We don't even have regulatory clarity on unit of account based cryptocurrencies right now, let alone expecting somebody to pay in an actual metaverse for every action that occurs, like hundreds of dollars in gas on the Ethereum network. But it is interesting that it's still so early that there's so many opportunities, in my opinion, in this space. If you're keeping to the base rules, not buying hype if you can, not buying at all-time high if you can, and doing things like sustainable things and watching and trying to follow the money or the relationships and the partners. And I think, Darren, you and I have tried to research a shit ton of projects in the past year and a half, probably thousands. And the easiest ones that we could have ever decided upon were the ones with the best relationships, partners, and kind of following the money if we would have picked them up at the right time. And it gets hard to do in a bull market. So
yeah, I'm one to exit at the right time too. That's the other part of it is, especially when you get into more of the lower market cap coins, and you can find quality assets, but and their partnerships and everything, but the markets can just deplete all your gains pretty quickly, with any types of moves. What are your thoughts on the metaverse, Crypto Owl?
The metaverse is a crazy concept. But it's awesome at the same time. Like, you could probably potentially use that for training and jobs at some point in time. It's just kind of like Solomon says, like, we're kind of like still new to this concept of metaverse and how it's going to be used. And I think like within competition and like, just people come with better ideas and just being competitive, that eventually like there will be a company that will make it work to where, I mean, look at these goggles. I mean, I couldn't wear that for 30 minutes, to be honest with you. I mean, I mean, I couldn't do it, man. Look how bulky though. Look at this guy. He's just like, dude, I cannot wear these.
Imagine like ordering a pizza and opening the door in those fucking goggles and being
dude,
like,
no shit.
Yeah, how much is a tip? Like,
dude. Oh
Would you ever host a Twitter space in the metaverse? Something like a get together, social gathering on the metaverse, Crypto?
1,000%.
Well, that would be fun, right? But then I would think about, I hear a lot of people say AI and how AI is tied into like the metaverse as well. Like, or I'm sorry, not AI, but augmented reality and like the metaverse. Like, people have been talking about when Google Glasses will integrate with this. So what we're looking at will definitely be smaller and more sufficient. Something like a Google Glasses, right?
By the way, the guy in this picture is definitely a serial killer. Look at
definitely.
This picture, and look at how many sticky notes in a perfect row this guy has.
Dude, like, what in the hell?
Who writes sticky notes? He's multitasking. He's writing on a notepad with Oculus goggles on, with about 40 sticky notes that are in perfect conjunction of one another, which no human being. When I write a sticky note, it is going in the worst place ever. So I definitely don't remember it. This guy has got it nailed down to the point where he's got like the house body count laid out for like 6 months at a time. Darren, I know we were talking about quantum. This is a horrible transition. Quantum computing. And you saw obviously David Schwartz at Joel Katz. I think you running through this because you were touching on it a little bit with, the zeros and ones, and I've done research into quantum computing as well to an extent. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the fear is that a quantum computer can, break a blockchain and be able to hack the blockchain, steal everyone's crypto, right? If you could figure out so a way a crypto works is a prime factoring, right? So it's a series of prime numbers. Now the quantum computers, supposedly really good at figuring out data sets and everything. So with the combination of artificial intelligence and quantum computing, the theory is that they would be able to break into Bitcoin or break into any of these crypto assets, and a lot of people are worried about this. But my thoughts on it is, so the way a quantum computer works, right, is a traditional computer works with zeros or ones, while a quantum computer is everything between 0 and 1, right? And the way that works is they would need a different hard drive, and they would also need to have negative 490 degrees to be able to operate this quantum computer. And that gets into like quantum theory and entanglement theory of why that is.
Isn't it also, so it's not necessarily even between, and I get the zeros and ones, but quantum computing essentially, if I type in, if I have a query or a mathematical computation, I can solve it in both the 0 state and in the 1 state, which makes it just completely ridiculous, because either, like you said, either it's a 0 or 1 with traditional computing, or a 0 or 1.
That's exactly how I understand it too.
But it's both. It's essentially like it's bridging what is necessarily possible right now, because it can exist in both states, which I think is ridiculous. And I could be wrong in that, and I haven't looked into it for 4 or 5 years when I did do some digging into it, but it's so abstract, because if you look up a definition for quantum computing, there isn't one. It's just all explanations about the definition. And it's an interpretation, but I think go ahead, Darren.
So like economically though, just setting that system up, and I mean it's able to handle a lot of processes at once. It's because it's able to figure out everything between 0 and 1. But yeah, having the hard drive just to facilitate that would need to look like an MRI. It would need to be able to have shades of black and white in between it, and that's not even manufactured. You're not even able to get those parts. So they would have to set up a whole supply chain and manufacture the hard drives and set up the controlled temperatures to even set that up. So to me, it doesn't seem very feasible. In that tweet that David Schwartz wrote, is there are algorithms to protect a lot of these crypto networks from like a quantum computing hack, just to make it more complicated so a quantum computer couldn't hack it. But my thoughts are, if you are willing to invest that much money into a quantum computer, why would you hack a crypto network? Like, what good would it be for you? It still would be illegal. Like, you can't just steal everyone's money because you can. You have to, and the people that could afford.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, like who are the institutions behind these quantum computing initiatives? Like, it's not going to be some guy that's like generating 10,000 goldfish in a bowl as an NFT contract hand out of, you know what I mean? It's probably going to be like hundreds of millions of dollars to build out these, if not maybe more, to build out these quantum computers and use them at scale. And I don't know, but I do think here's the only concern with that, is that whoever has that much money, if they are not participating in like what's going on with DLT and crypto, and they don't have their eggs in that basket, like there would be an incentive to like upset the network. But it's like, I think we all know where this is going too, and it's like, it's I don't think it's an arbitrary threat, but it's a threat that we haven't seen come to fruition. We don't even know what it would look like right now.
Yeah, well, if it hosted all the money, right, then of course there'd be a lot of incentive to actually crack it. But by the time we get there, though, I think that's a long ways away, and there's plenty of time to innovate to make the quantum safe algorithms and everything to protect everybody's.
You found this today too, dude, or a couple of days ago, which is Conoco.
Yeah,
Conoco. Hell yeah. We
That's
see
probably
so-
wrong. Yeah,
it's
Conoco.
so
Conoco.
funny,
Let's
yeah.
go.
No, you're
Conoco
good.
sounds more professional too.
Yeah, it
Conoco
does.
Phillips, or let's say Conoco Philippe's. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that does have
that
a
sounds
nice
good.
ring to
Yeah,
it.
it does.
Yeah.
What, where you are, Crypto Al, is there a big energy ConocoPhillips by you?
Yeah, I think there is, but I think it's down south close to San Antonio. I'm like in the heart of Texas, so I have it. I definitely, yeah, I just live in like a population of 20,000 people, so I kind of lucked out on that, man, to be honest with you. I try to stay away from the big city life.
Yeah, this is one of the like largest oil and gas companies, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, dude, yeah, I mean, yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's happening here is they're gonna start allowing Bitcoin to be mined. So I was listening to a Lynn Alden video, and she says that she's previously like an electrical engineer, and she talks about the networks, the electrical grids need to produce more energy than they can consume, and they do this as a safeguard. If you use too much energy, the whole grid doesn't shut down. So they make more energy, and that energy just doesn't get used. So the Bitcoin miners are planning on using that energy, and if they're told to shut off, they shut off, so the rest of the grid can actually get the electric. Now, I'm not necessarily, I'm not pro proof of work. I don't really like it. I think it's wasteful. I think it's inefficient, etc. But I don't see a reason why there should be any ban on proof of work if they're able to, figure all this out and able to innovate and make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about sustainability, right?
Yeah, it's a good thing if there's a bunch of people that can be hired to set up these mining operations. They'll need to hire people. It's good for everyone if they're able to do it in a
I like how open-minded you are, Darren, because like I strive to do that, because sometimes I get caught, man, where I'm just like, hey, screw that, or whatever, based on a biased opinion. And, being human is tough sometimes, but no, you're right. I mean, if they're going to use, some energy that's being wasted and use it, for proof of work, then hey, man, so be it. I mean, I'm not trying to make jokes or hit anybody in the stomach, but it's better than Pomp in the volcano making like, pizzas. You see, what was it? I made up. It was, it was Pampa John's Pizza,
Yeah.
You're just hanging out by these volcanoes, man. But yeah, I mean, the humor is great in crypto, but yeah, back to your point is, yeah, I agree. And I think it's very important to be open-minded when people talk about these things. It's kind of like an employee. You see the good and the bad out of it, right? So you could use examples to definitely learn more, because all you're going to do is open your mind to learn more. And what's wrong with that, right, guys? Woo!
Yeah, I mean,
Do you think you fell a victim to the whole tribalism thing? Or you like an XRP maxi that gets into arguments on Twitter with other maxis?
Oh man, absolutely not. What's funny is I tell them all I hate the XRP maxis too, to be honest with you. And that's,
I love all the maxis, man, because they make for
know-
entertaining content too.
but well, exactly.
But see, the thing is like, I think I can say that because I was an XRP maximalist for a good 2.5 years of my life. And I still put it up there in a handful of projects. But man, sometimes it's like,
yeah, it gets rough.
you
right?
don't
And
like your kind
really the
around here talking
individual.
about these other assets. You know what I mean? It's like,
Exactly.
whoa, like, sorry, dude,
Yeah, some people from the Bitcoin space want to learn about XRP, and I've had them come in there, or Ethereum, right? And we do great together, right? Because they just want to learn and they don't want to be cut down by like, somebody that's real hot on them. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what we're missing in the space. So when they come in, we greet them and just say, yeah. And if they have something to offer us for knowledge and that we want to be interested in, then that's awesome. But once they get to, hey, all you guys are crazy and think, XRP is going to go to $10,000 and all this. And I'm laughing because I'm just an individual that doesn't think like that. And, it's like, XRP buybacks and all this. I mean, anything's possible, right? But I'm not going to sit here and say that, and give.
Oh, it's interesting to me that we consistently see like this rhetoric about empowering the masses, but then we still have the siloed Twitter ecosystems of like maximalists. And to me, it's like, again, like I certainly have like trolled like proof of work and stuff like that, but I'm not. I just don't think it's efficient, but I'm not going to go against it to the point where they shouldn't be able to innovate to make the network work more efficiently and more sustainably. That would be stupid of me to say. So
Right.
I think this is big. And then last but not least on here, and Al, you better have that music loaded up after this portion of it.
Oh yeah.
I know you want to lead us off, but this just leads us all to kind of understand what space we're in, and like $1.7 million in NFTs stolen. So this was a phishing attack on OpenSea. There's a whole spreadsheet on here. And essentially this was like people that are participating in the NFT community on a consistent basis, blindly buying and signing contracts or initiating with contracts and stuff like that. And there was almost like blank checks being written to these hackers that facilitated this phishing attempt, and all they had to do was fill out the checks in the back end, transfer assets from the wallets, from like yours or my wallet at no cost. So these things are going to get more and more sophisticated. So please be cognizant of what you're doing in this space. And I think that all of us, Darren, I know that I've bought in a couple of projects over the past year, purely hype-based ones, not like utility-based ones, just for that kind of gamble, whatever. And I've been involved in probably 3 or 4 rug pulls where I got rug pulled and stuff like that. It's like, to me though, like that's the natural progression of a hype cycle. And there's lessons learned for me personally over like a 4-year period where I'm like, yeah, next time I might not even like deal in any of that. Like, cause if you buy at the right time, whenever things are just so undervalued, you don't even have to deal in the bullshit. You just sit back and you watch it. And then maybe you do have play money that you don't care what happens to. And I think that both you and I have talked about that multiple times, where it's about constantly learning. And I think you and I are trying to still constantly learn. So the last thing I'll say, and Darren, you can touch on this certainly as well, is that, for me, I think having somebody like Crypto Al on board and doing a podcast like this, and somebody who has tried to facilitate value conversations in the community, I think it's an inherent thing of how we want to move forward and just keep doing these podcasts. I think that let's bring as many people up as we can, and let's try to just have fun conversations together, Darren.
Yeah, of course. This is got good, it's also, all the different articles that you bring up, like I never would have brought up some of these. So I just, it's a good learning experience for me too. And that's what we were talking about, the rug pulls, right? We've used that too though. So now we know like what to look for. We know how to like view Etherscan and view some of these scans and like look for the right thing. So it's really been beneficial as far as like educational purposes, right? Like we've learned a lot, knowing that, we should make sure that there's somebody that's selling the coin before we jump into it, somebody that's able to buy and sell. And if you go on there and the order books are all just buys and there's no sells, it's probably something you should wait until there's at least one sell. And, that might be the rug pull. So, just information like that you never would have known, and just being able to look on the Explorer and figure out, who's the whale, who's manipulating this market. It's been quite the learning experience. And I'm personally grateful for that. I know, if harsh regulations come in, a lot of that stuff's going to be wiped out, but it's taught me a lot. And, I'm grateful that I've actually learned all this information. So, yeah.
And you're probably in the same boat as I am, where I can look back, like, because during 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, this past year has been interesting because it was really easy to do that utility driven research at like that all the way up until like the very end of 2020. And I could literally flush through thousands of assets and call bullshit or not call bullshit. 2021 was ridiculous. It was like the Wild West. And I think that you and I both went through different things of, we found some and thought that we had it nailed down, and like, but then the market just kept getting more and more hypey. So it's like, what am I still doing? Like, what is my base meaning in life? Like, and I think that it does come down to sustainability.
Yeah, being able to evaluate like the hypey stuff, right? Like knowing that it's hypey, but knowing that it's going to pump, right? Being able to evaluate that, like that's actually really tough, right? To find the next thing that's gonna have the momentum to go up. That's
you remember? I was in my Patreon and I messaged in the Twitter group and because I started feeling uncomfortable, and obviously not financial advice even to the patrons or anything, but it was like 6 months in. So like I started doing it like November, and then it was like by May, or it was like 4 or 5 months in, where I was like, do you guys still want me to research small caps? And people was like, everybody was like, yes, do it, you're killing it. And then like obviously like I was like, at some point this ship is going to like it's not going to go well. And there were obviously ones that didn't do well. I mean, that's the nature of this space. I mean, when you're dealing in hype, there's no way, because there's just so much of it. And I'm interested to see where the market goes, because we all know, I think everybody in this group knows how big this market is. And even we, I think, need a reset as like being so involved. You almost get like, it's like when you're painting a huge building and you're painting the whole thing white or one color, and you start getting like vertigo from looking at the same thing nonstop. I think resetting back and being like, well, it's not all the same thing, because there's a lot of bullshit in here. And removing the bullshit if you can, and then just kind of dialing it back and keeping to the basics. That's, I think, what I've found myself getting a little bit more into recently. At least I feel like I have, and I think you probably have done the same thing, because we're actually like sharing like NWOE type shit now. Before we're like, hey, did you hear this coin called Goldfish Bowls 3000? Yeah, supposedly they're like revolutionizing like the aquatics market. And I was like, no, I didn't hear that. Let me check it out. Interesting partners. Like that went out the window. Now we're kind of back to the basics, dude.
That's hilarious, man. Man, you know what, guys? Like, if I had to say anything, like, first off, thank you guys for having me on. And man, this has been a crazy thing for me, you know, as a deranged owl. I got to be on Darren's podcast with you guys, man, which is not like the first of it. The second of it is that, man, I love all the community everywhere, even if you aren't doing podcast or on YouTube. And I love all you guys. And when I'm filling up my truck and I'm using Conoco gas, I'm going to be thinking about you guys, man. And I love all you guys, and keep rocking it. Keep the information going. And you guys are the shit. And I'm Crypto Al, and I approve this message.
Thanks, Crypto Al. And yeah, thank you, Darren. Thank you, Al. I think that one went well, so I'm going to end it and look forward to posting it and sharing this information with you guys. And thank you guys.